Hello, friends of the internet. Hope you're doing awesome. It has been a minute since we have made a video together here, but I want to pop on here so that we can have a little powwow, have a little chit chat, because I'm playing this 2025 goal setting workshop. And I have all these notes of my reflections from 2024, things that went well, things we want to do more of, things that did not go so well, things that we don't want to do again. And I thought maybe it's helpful for someone out there who may want to learn from these lessons, these frameworks, if you will, especially for those of you who are interested in building something that you're proud of in 2025 and what that means to create something that is in alignment and that also works. And so for as long as I can remember, I have been motivated for creating things for the sake of creating things, not necessarily always having a super watertight plan of what exactly is going to become of that, but having that alignment. So the first business I created was a string quartet, and that was because it was like 2015. I had been teaching for a few years, and I absolutely loved it. And I love my students and all of that, but at the same time, I knew that I wasn't being challenged myself as a musician to grow, and so I wanted to do something that could get me closer to the craft, where I could actually do the work that I wanted to do and grow in that way. So I created a string quartet, and it did just that. It got me closer to the type of music I wanted to be around, challenged in the right ways, and growing. And also, I loved everything else around it. I absolutely loved building the client experience, and I absolutely loved my clients, and I absolutely loved building a brand and all those things. And to my surprise, fairly quickly, it grew into a six-figure business. And so that was cool and all, but I didn't see that end from when I started. What started was just a desire to create something I was proud of and create something that could be of service. And so I want to talk about some of the frameworks that help me to continue to do that. My next venture, as most of you know me, I work with musicians at musicwork.com. And this past year we launched what I'm particularly proud of when looking back at the goals I set, the goals that we hit, the goals that we missed, and I'm reflecting on what that all looked like. One thing that I really stayed true to as a North Star, which I can feel proud of hitting, is the fact that I wanted to create a high-level mastermind, and we did, called Music Work Pro, that I could be proud of the results that people were getting, and just having that as a North Star, not like how many people I can get, or it's how good of results can we get people, how awesome can we make this. And I wanted something to be as good as music, like people just hear it and they just naturally enjoy it, and they just naturally want to tell people about it, because it's just, how can you create results for musicians as enjoyable as playing music? It was a challenge I made for myself. I don't know if any of this is making sense, but anyways, that was the goal. And looking back, I can say that that is something that I'm really happy that we are able to achieve in a way that is greater than I've ever seen it, working with musicians this past year especially. So some of the musicians that I worked with at the beginner level or at the more established level, there's a handful in each category that nearly doubled what they were doing in revenue, and that was just incredible to see. And on average, everyone grew as well. And it's more than that. We created an environment where musicians could be themselves and not need to explain themselves, and get the support, resources, and I could do the behind the scenes things that I love to do for them, to kind of help replicate the magic that I created from my first business, and kind of share the love with that with the musicians I'm working with most closely. So that's what I'm speaking to when I'm saying, who is this person you're listening to right now? I am someone who loves to create things, loves to help musicians, and what experience we're talking about here that I'm speaking to is creating things for the sake of creating things that I'm proud of, and I feel are striving to be excellent. I'm still very far from it. Nothing I've created is at all, exactly where I want to be. I know you can relate as someone who is a creative, that not everything, most things we're going to be our toughest critic at the end of the day. So I'm not by any means saying that everything I create is a complete masterpiece. Everything I create has lots of room to improve. But if you can relate to that motivation and to create things that you love and that work and that serve people, then hopefully I have some tips here that will be helpful for anyone out here who is looking to do that with their music, with their business, with their craft, whatever it may be. So on to our tips, on to our frameworks. Let's do this. Okay, now the first framework I have to bestow upon you all is leaning into thinking for yourself. So I'm someone who is naturally a very good student. I'm great with a list of instructions and a checklist and doing what I'm told. And I'm not saying by any means that it is not good to be a good student. You absolutely should be learning from people who are above you and who you want to be like, and even having them speak into your life if you can. So that's all super important. The mistake that I made early on that I'd like to help you avoid, if I may, is to listen to other people in lieu of listening to your own intuition. So when you think about it, it's great to take advice and learn from other people, but at the end of the day, you are going to understand your situation, your experiences, where you're looking to go, so much greater nuance than any other human possibly could. So we can't ever replace our own intuition and sense of direction for just following someone else's checklist, because if we do, the best we're going to get is just being a little worse than what they are. But if you want to create something you're proud of and something that's truly, the best that you have to offer the world, then I definitely encourage you to lean into that intuition, voice that you can't always put the finger on, that it is there for a reason. So lean into your intuition, keep learning, but also keep thinking for yourself. Okay, now quick story to bring this point home about my real experience of when this became super real to me, of thinking for myself. So like a lot of you might be able to relate, when I was growing up, especially like being in music, I had a lot of great people in my life and speaking into my life about music, but it was kind of understood, and the common narrative was that if you're a musician, you can't really make money with music. It's just for fun, or these should be your expectations. This is kind of where you belong. This is the ceiling. And that was what I accepted, and that was fine. However, let's make a long story short, okay? I got married and moved to the US, and I was in a situation where for the first time I needed to be more financially motivated because of our income situation with my husband being in professional school. Long story short, I'm like, okay, well, I need to be motivated by creating income now. I'm going to learn from business people about what I should do. I'm going to start a new business. I knew I had a little bit of experience because I already created my string quartet at that time, but I didn't really think it had any potential. And despite seeing that it was growing and that people absolutely loved it, I didn't really believe in it. And it's crazy to think back that that's the way that my mindset was. So I tried to learn about business and learn about like how other people approach business, making a business, but I kept looking back at this business I already had and thinking like, wait a second, like this is checking all the boxes of something that could be a great business, but it can't be because musicians can't make money. And it's just so amazing to think back that it took me having to think for myself to break that mindset, to actually just like open the faucet for what that business actually could be. And that's when it really grew, when I actually adopted the belief that, wait a second, there's no reason why this can't be a really substantial business. And that's exactly what I put my focus into making it become. And so that was a really eye-opening experience, because again, maybe you guys, you can borrow this this breakthrough for yourself. If you're there and you're thinking you're a musician who can't make an income with your music, you absolutely can. So it was just learning that for myself, because no one told me that, oh yeah, absolutely you can make more out of that business you started. It was something I had to learn through my own intuition. So that was just one example to drive it home, but this is continuing to be something that I think about when it comes to when I'm creating things. What is my own intuition of my unique perspective, what I can bring to make something excellent that I'm proud of. Hopefully that helps. Now, the second tip I have to share with you all is to find your unfair advantages. So what do I mean by this? So I define an unfair advantage as something that is like a gift, something that you can do and gives you energy that you can't stop doing, and that other people would get exhausted by, the things that fuel you, that drain others. So what are those things? For maybe some of you, it's creating music, and that's how you got as good as you are. That's a perfect example of something you have an unfair advantage of, that you have a gift in, and my encouragement is to lean into those things. Now, you're going to have more than just one of them, so you want to find what those are. Maybe you are absolutely fueled by creating content in the process of doing that. I wish I had that, but for me, it's well, we won't complain about it right now. But in any case, whatever those things are that give you energy, you want to be very curious about what those are and find a way for them to work together in a flywheel where they're going to fuel each other, okay? So, for example, I am really fueled by music aside. We all like music, and creating music gives us an unfair advantage of being better at music who people don't like than people who don't like creating music, right? And that's why we're professional musicians, for those who are professional musicians in the audience, as an example. But as a professional musician, and one thing that we work on at musicwork.com is we need to be a bit more full stack, to have some other tools in our tool belt to be able to help us to really be successful. So what are those things? For me, I absolutely love building websites. I absolutely love design and ranking websites. And this is something that can give me so much energy, and I can just stay up all night doing it. Not like you should skip sleep to do work, because that's going to be short term. But in any case, that's something that for me is like very fueling, that I can absolutely pour a ton of time into, that gives me an unfair advantage, as opposed to someone else who don't give them near a website editor, but they absolutely love creating content and they love the game of being on social media. That's a much better promotion tool for them because it gives them energy. So we see what other people are doing sometimes, and we think oh, I got to force myself to do whatever they're doing because that's what works. To an extent, we are always going to have to do things that we don't want to do. And I'm not saying that you never have to do something that you don't want to do another day in your life. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying as much as we can, find them things that are productive, that create a flywheel of positive effects, that give you energy, and optimize your environment and your schedule so you can do more of those things, because that's what's really going to give you that, again, unfair advantage to be able to create something that you're proud of and really never run out of energy while you're doing it. Alrighty, now the third framework I want to share is to focus on service. So we know as creatives, when we're creating something for ourselves and are absolutely enthralled in a craft, that's a wonderful thing. However, in my experience, it's even better when creating that thing is of service to someone else and they enjoy it too. So if you're someone who hasn't experienced that yet and maybe you feel like you're safe in your own bedroom making music or whatever it is, I definitely encourage you to take the risk to step out there to find your people who will resonate with what you do, because it's going to make it that much more fun. And this is also how any business is created, right? How we're going to be able to have a financial flywheel to be able to fund ourselves to create more is through being of service to other humans. So I definitely encourage anyone to think of what they do as their craft as a service to other people. Don't think of it as separate, like, oh, I do this for me and that's for them. As much as, I'm not saying it's always wrong to do that, but if you can find the people who, for example, if you're performing for weddings and events as a musician, when it comes to their taste in music and your taste in music, we need to be listening to what the market wants, of course. But the more that you pour into yourself and your craft and attract more people that are like you, the more that you're going to have this synergy being between doing what you love and also doing what other people love, and the more that's going to be able to fuel the business and everything else for you to be able to keep creating the things that you love. So hopefully that makes sense. Definitely think about what you do as being of service to others. It's going to make it so much more fun, and it's also going to make it so much more of a financial flywheel, like I mentioned, for you to be able to continue to fund what you're doing for the long run. Okay, now the fourth framework I want to share with you all is to attack constraints. So what do I mean by this? We're buckling down and just talking about business operations now, specifically as an example, but you can apply it elsewhere. So if we have a goal, something that we're looking to achieve, especially in business, there's going to be usually one thing that is kind of choking the progress more than everything else, okay? So the simple way that I like to think through this myself, if I'm not getting the results I want when I'm looking at the goal that I'm after, is I like to think about it as like a matrix. Or maybe we'll draw something over here like that. And I think about these 4 quadrants. And basically when it comes to business, as an example, we have our marketing, we have our sales, we have our fulfillment, and then we have our operations, okay? And what I like to do is sometimes our brain wants to do things that aren't actually the thing that is going to move the business forward. So the way to identify where the constraint is, which one of these 4 components is being squeezed and stopping the results from coming out, is I like to just brainstorm everything that I think I need to do for each one of these. So I get them all out on the page. And then I like to make a different sort of matrix over here and understand which tasks are projects that need to get done, things that are like long-term initiatives that will change results, things that are going to be management tasks, things that we need to keep doing in order to keep the same results. And then things that I call them sandbox tasks, things that we don't know if they're going to get results, like maybe like spending an hour to like think about a new song that you're writing, or to work on this video that you're not sure exactly, or build a connection with someone that you don't know if it will lead anywhere, things like that. So I tend to break things into these types of tasks, and I think, okay, where are the constraints? What one thing can I solve looking at these frameworks will open the floodgates for there to keep being more results. So again, if our goal is to grow the business, and we're looking at our matrix over here of we have our marketing, we have our sales, we have our fulfillment, and we have our operations. If we're not getting the sales we want, I would usually look at, okay, are we having enough leads coming in? Then that's a marketing problem. Are we having people not saying yes to us enough? Then that can be a sales problem. And then I would choose what project I'm working on based off of where the constraint is. Hopefully that's making sense. This is something I'm going to be digging deep into in the workshop. It's just my mental framework for being able to understand tasks and categorize tasks. It's given me so much peace of mind and structure as someone who's like worked for myself for I don't know how many years now, quite a few. Being self-directed and being able to understand what your tasks are, what your priorities are, and unclogging the constraints based off of the goal is a super important skill. So we're going to be digging into that a lot together in the workshop. But there it is. Attack constraints. All right. Okie dokie. Now my 5th and final framework that I want to share with you all is when you have that goal, when you have something you're looking to achieve and pull it into the present, is to take steps and walk in faith, not in fear. Okay, now you're like, Allison, you're getting real woo-wooing out there. Hear me out, because the actions or the results that we get are going to come from the actions that we take. So ultimately, we need to have a belief somewhere, especially at the beginning, that, okay, what I'm about to embark on, this can work. I can get a result if I continue in this journey. But maybe you can relate. We get to pass that initial excitement of going after a goal, whether maybe it's a song that you're looking to create or produce, or maybe even if you can relate when you're first learning your instrument, like we have that first initial excitement that we encounter when we believe something's possible, but then we get to that valley of despair, week 2, week 3 of posting on Instagram, and we were committed to the process, but suddenly like we're not getting the results we thought we would. And what we do in those moments when we're starting to doubt. And what I encourage you to do is keep acting as if things will work. Hold on to that, like walk in faith. You don't need to perfectly believe in faith, but if you keep taking the actions that will produce the result, then you will eventually get the results. So just commit to the walk and taking the steps. Remember that fear is going to be a much louder voice than the voice of faith, that you can make new things happen. So fear can sometimes masquerade itself as wisdom. Maybe even smart people in your life will say like, oh, every reason why that will never work, or you shouldn't go after that dream. And they may be right, and that may be a practical thing to say, but it may not be true. And so I encourage you to, again, especially taking the other frameworks that I shared, we can't believe for just anything and it will happen. Obviously that doesn't make sense. However, if we are thinking for ourselves and looking at things as objectively and truthfully as possible, if we are leaning into our gifts and finding our unfair advantages, things that we have this weird knack for and energy for, if we're focusing on serving other people, and if we're being realistic about what the goal is and what the constraints are that are getting in the way, once we have all those things, I think I'll tell you that, in my opinion, you have good reason to have faith that things will work out if you keep staying in alignment with all of those qualities. So keep taking steps even when you're in the seasons of doubt. And, I remember, like, even everything's like this. Every day is like this, to be real. But, even with, like, when I was decided that, like, oh, hey, I think thinking for myself, my string quartet could be my financial vehicle to what my needs were when I, like I told you before, moved to the U.S. and was recently married. And I didn't have any reason to believe that was possible, but I had to act as if that was possible to put the amount of investment and time into building things that I did in order to make things work. And so I've seen, this play out multiple times, that sometimes the realistic thing that the voice of fear is saying is not actually what's true. And so I encourage you, it's the same with musicwork.com, looking at how things are now versus what they will be are completely different things. So you got to keep holding on to where you're going and taking steps as if that is possible, and that's how it will be made into reality. So hopefully this was fun for you all. Workshops coming up on January 8th. If you happen to be watching this before January 8th, 2025, there'll be a link to join in the description below. And you also, if you're not in it already, it's a cool community with music pros that you're going to absolutely love if you're a musician. Sorry, it's just for musicians, this one. So anyways, love you all. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm going to be doing more podcasts coming up, so that's my commitment, my accountability to you. So Happy New Year. Have a very lovely day, evening, all that, and we'll see you around.